You can order award-winning Jonesy Q rubs and sauces at jonesyq.com. Use promo code OOBSHOW if you order $20 or more and receive free shipping. That's jonesyq.com. Promo code OOBSHOW.
RKS Pickens Jackson.
You ready?
Let's go! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now live in the BankPlus Studio, where college football meets the all-lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This is the Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds, streaming around the world live at the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
where are you?
The Zone.
Oh, man. Good morning. Welcome in. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. Show is brought to you by Juniker Jewelry Store. If you're in the market for an engagement ring, you definitely want to hit a grand slam. Juniker Jewelry will walk you through that process. Also, if you're looking for necklace, bracelet, pair of earrings, Juniker Jewelry Store in Madison on Highland Colony. Two big stories today. Mississippi State laid an egg at the Liberty Bowl, losing 34-7 to the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Mike Leach Bowl. It did not go Mike Leach's way. It went his former quarterback, Sonny Cumbie's way. And he was the interim head coach for the Texas Tech Red Raiders, starting quarterback in 2004 under Mike Leach. And now, today, officially official, he becomes the new head football coach for the La Tech Bulldogs. Sonny Cumbie wanted that game. You could tell from the jump, even before the game. His body language and energy on the sideline told you how much he wanted it. And he never stopped throughout the game. And he had his team prepared, and he had his team ready, and they had a great game plan. They had a defensive coordinator going another direction that stayed on, and Sonny Cumbie, who was promoted to interim head coach the last 4 games of the year, and Sonny Cumbie with the W in the Liberty Bowl. You know, he wanted to beat Mike Leach. That's his coach. He's competitive, and he played for Mike, owes Mike a lot. And then I think he thought he was overlooked at Texas Tech. And those two things, somehow, in the last 3 weeks or so, he got his team ready and focused and locked in. They had a good game plan, and they ripped off 11 yards per carry to start the night and marched right down and scored a touchdown and kind of set the tone of imposing their will on that Mississippi State team that had, a lot of guys out for COVID, but still got to be more competitive than that. But I think on the flip side is why you couldn't move it offensively. I thought the offensive line gave you an opportunity to move it. I actually thought, considering what they were up against, losing your 2 tackles and Dollar Bill breaking his leg early in the game, another starter, and shuffling people all over the place. You ran for 7 yards per carry when you did want to run. And I thought for the most part, Will Rogers had plenty of time. And it at times had all day. It just something wasn't in sync in the passing game between Will and the receivers. And not a good way to end the year. You laid an egg in the Golden Egg and then in the Liberty Bowl. So you won 7 games, which is good, and you had 4 big wins, which is good, and you're bringing back a lot of players, which is good, but I think there's just some, question marks there. Other big story today is John Madden passes away at 85, Pro Football Hall of Fame coach and broadcaster, and his net worth was more than $200 million. The overwhelming majority of that from, he made a lot of money as a broadcaster, but a big chunk of that was obviously video game, Madden. You played it. I played it. And
you've played Madden?
I have.
I'm proud of you.
Probably, I'd say several dozen times.
Proud of you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I had buddies who had it in college.
Yeah.
So, it was easy to just pick,
It's been big forever.
Right. if you wanted to kill 30 minutes,
There you go.
yeah. And
Or a whole freshman year.
well, I know that I had friends. You may have been that guy. I know you had friends. We all had friends that binged Madden.
Yeah.
I wasn't that guy, but yeah, I played it several dozen. I wasn't a guy who played it, 800 times, but
Yeah.
I played it several dozen times.
Yeah. It's always been a
We
popular
did have
game.
one weekend in college where we had a Madden tournament. and
That's
I
what
will
we
never.
would-
That's not my MO. I need to move and do things,
Yeah.
and so I'm not really a, veg out on the couch guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed, in the apartment all weekend.
Yeah. No, we would do like Madden tournaments too.
But I
in
wanted to
college.
go
Yeah.
see people. I wasn't a person who was going to plop down on the couch and sit there forever. But I did do that. It was literally 48 hours of Madden.
Yeah. That's
It
where
was
it's at, man.
insanity.
That's college for you, baby.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. That was back, you get food delivered throughout the weekend. You don't have to leave.
Yeah. Now, too, like what's crazy now is I go back and like I had a Nintendo 64, which was like, the state-of-the-art thing in the 90s, right? One of the innovative new gaming systems. And they had Madden for that. And I've periodically I'll pull it out and like just check stuff out and just kind of look at it, reminisce, all that stuff. And you pull out the Madden game and it's like a bunch of blocky characters, like literal pixel blocks basically, because it's the 90s, and it's like you can throw like 2 passes and you can run the ball and that's it.
Yeah.
And like now Madden is such a fully immersive experience that they've been working on the virtual reality Madden stuff to where you literally feel like you're in the quarterback's body and you're like looking out at the field and stuff. I mean, that's John Madden's footprint or fingerprint on the NFL game and the video game world.
Well, and whoever brought the deal to him,
Genius.
brilliant. Genius. Yeah, and I don't know who that was.
And to not go after a coach or a player is so interesting. Like, I know Madden was a coach, but he was a sitting broadcaster at the time and had been a broadcaster for a while when that game came. To decide to go after a guy like Madden, who still wasn't he was a character, but I don't even think he still was at the peak of what he became, right, when they started that game.
I agree.
Impressive foresight to go that route instead of going like the Tiger Woods route.
Yeah, instead of tapping, at that time, Montana.
Troy Aikman. It could have been Troy Aikman NFL.
Aikman, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it could have been Tom Brady NFL 23, right? Like that, because
Right.
that's what the golf game is. It's Tiger Woods PGA Tour,
Right.
And so it's interesting that they went with Madden, and then to see what it turned into.
Like you said, genius.
Oh, genius!
Now, according to this, he's worth over $200. We thought it'd be a little bit more, but he's worth over $200 million.
Yeah, but
that's still an enormous
then
amount of money.
You look back and you think about the fact that in 1994, when Fox hired him and they gave him an $8 million a year salary, that was more than any player was making in the NFL. And
That's amazing.
You realize that year at Fox in 1994, he probably made more than all 10 years he was at the Raiders.
Yeah.
$8 million in 1 year.
No
I
question.
bet he didn't clear that in 10 years at the Raiders.
I agree.
Totally
Let's
different
see,
landscape.
No, I don't think he
Totally
even came
different.
close.
Yeah, totally different landscape.
I mean, Al Davis wasn't paying anybody back then.
No.
Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're receiving some text on the Ag Up Equipment Mississippi Ag text line that we can't even read on the air. As far as kind of the performance, especially from the Mississippi State offense last night.
Well, that's Mike Leach. It's like when Georgia's defense plays poorly against Alabama. You go, well, that's Kirby's side of the ball. What happened?
Right.
It's the same thing with Mike Leach. That's your ball. That's
Right.
what you do.
Right.
You did it poorly.
How do you see this offseason? I just think it was such a thud that I wonder how much juice you can get going, as we roll into March and May and June and July going into football season. Right? I mean, I think we've kind of been in the endemic status space. So we'll be there, but that's kind of been flushed down here, Blake. If you want to go to a game, you go to a game. I just wonder where the excitement level will be as we roll into the spring and summer. Dave Bartoo coming up at 9:30 on the Bell's Two Hearted Ale guest line. #1 American IPA. in America. The Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. Bartoo will join us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Kessler Prime. For the best steaks in Mississippi, visit Kessler Prime in the Renaissance.
I don't think there's any love lost between the UCLA football athletic department and the North Carolina State football athletic department. After UCLA pulled out of the bowl game 4 hours before they played, citing the health and wellness of their football team after they had done 19 bowl activities throughout the week, going to SeaWorld, dinners, everything else. What? Leave it up to a West Coast school.
Is COVID not
in a market that has handled COVID so poorly, it's hard to even wrap your brain around it.
He's like a bad drinking game. It just won't end.
Can I, just real quick, Dave Doran, who Mississippi State played earlier in the year and beat NC State. Yeah. NC State finished 9-3. They had a good football team. Dave Doran's quote, head football coach for NC State, felt lied to be honest. We felt like UCLA probably knew something was going on, didn't tell anybody on our side. We had no clue they were up against that. I don't feel like it was very well handled from their university. It would have been great to have had a heads up 2 or 3 days ago so we could find a plan B. Disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything other than children? Is there anything better than COVID to say, I don't want to do something, so COVID? Because you can't prove that it's not.
Do you know how many business owners I've talked to the last year and a half? They're like, we just say COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, it's giving people an opportunity to just say,
it is what it is.
COVID.
It's an end-all, be-all excuse that can't be questioned.
Yep. Boom.
Texas A&M doesn't want to lose by 2 touchdowns to Wake Forest? COVID. I do feel bad for NC State. 2 sports their postseason just ripped out from underneath them. And I know they weren't playing for a national title in this one, but woof.
Can I read this real quick before we do the John Madden
please,
stuff? All right. Bowl season executive director Nick Carparelli, in a text message to ESPN, said the Bruins' cancellation was due to COVID-19 protocols. Let me give you the quote. UCLA's statement makes it very clear that their inability to play was due to the protocols in place and not the virus itself. I feel bad for both teams as well as the great people at the Holiday Bowl who worked so hard all year long for today. This continues to be a very sad and frustrating situation. And I think more and more people, Blake, are waking up to that, even on the East and West Coast.
Yes.
Even the diehard CNNers and Fox Newsers.
Yes.
They're waking up to the fact that they have, been brainwashed. And I think there's finally a large percent of the brainwashed group that is shaking it. Now, they're mad that they were wrong, and sometimes they're taking it out on those of us who use logic and reason. But just something to think about. Like, I hate it for NC State. Yeah. So, anyway, that did happen. And NC State had a bad year when it came to sports.
Yeah.
Omaha in the College World Series.
On the precipice of a national title.
Right.
Ripped out from under them.
Right. Mississippi State would have beat them anyway, but they would have had an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
And
now you don't get to play the Holiday Bowl, which, again, it's not for a title, but how many of those kids on NC State's team was this was going to be their last game? And to have it just pulled out from under you,
I think
literally
that's what you forget about.
4 hours beforehand.
The seniors that are just going to go ahead and get into sales and be a pharmacist.
There's no
and
makeup. There's no going back. It's done. It's over.
And all the things that the East and West Coast and some others have taken from kids, taking them out of school, the repercussions are going to be gross and terrible for years and years and years. But the Faucis of the world don't care.
No.
Because it's never been about your health or my health or your safety. So we know that. That was terrible, though, to see that happen with UCLA and NC State. All right, we're going to move on to some is this the John Madden Hall of Fame stuff? Okay. Obviously, Pro Football Hall of Famer John Madden passed away yesterday. This is him talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
You have to stay with me a moment on this one. This is a little goofy here, and you're going to say, oh, there's old Madden being goofy again. But I started thinking about this after I got voted into the Hall of Fame. And the more I think about it, the more I think it's true. And now I know it's true and I believe it. Here's the deal. I think over in the Hall of Fame that during the day the people go through and they look at everything. And then at night there's a time when they all leave. And all the fans and all the visitors leave the Hall of Fame. Then there's just the workers. And the workers start to leave. And then it gets down, there's just one person. And that person turns out the light, locks the door. I believe that the busts talk to each other. And I can't wait for that conversation. I really can't. To Vince LaMarche, to Newt Rockney, to Reggie, to Walter Payton, to the guys that you want to say, to all my players, my ex-players, we'll be there forever and ever and ever talking about whatever. And that's what I believe, and that's what I think is going to happen, and no one's ever going to talk me out of that.
He was able to, Blake, come of age at a time when the public allowed you to do so.
Yep.
Today, you've got the Twitter and the web and everything else that picks everybody apart.
We expect perfection now.
And he was able to bumble and stumble all over the place during broadcasts, and it was okay. And make mistakes and reference a player's number or name in the wrong way, okay? Because it's a bang. I mean, we stumble over each other all the time. We're doing live radio. We're saying, 1.2 million words over 3 hours, whatever it is. And John Madden, and during that time, he had the ability to come of age and develop at a time when we allowed you to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. His imperfections are what made him the perfect broadcaster.
Yeah.
Because it made him more relatable. It made him funny. And his ability to, again, not take it serious. Like, I think he knew, and I'm sure there's audio or him talking about it. I know that in the NFL Films documentary, he talked about living a blessed life. So he understood how lucky he was.
Oh, sure.
But I think he knew who he was and what he was, and he wasn't afraid to make mistakes and to be, he just said, oh, y'all are going to think this is goofy old Madden. Like, he saw himself as just a guy who was lucky to talk about football. And I think that's what made people go, wow, I think Romo gives that off. I don't think Aikman and Buck give off that. I think they give off that, like, we're supposed to be here. We're better than everyone. Not that they're necessarily self-righteous, but it's just a different vibe.
Right.
I got that same vibe from Collinsworth. Madden and Romo give me the, hey, bud, you want to come have a beer?
Right.
Let's watch this game, and I'll tell you about what this defensive lineman's doing.
And Romo's able to pull that off, even though he's pretty.
And was a quarterback. That's the difference.
A QB.
Madden was a coach when coaches weren't celebrities.
He played line.
And he was a coach when coaches weren't celebrities.
Yes.
They really weren't.
And he played on the line of scrimmage, and that just really resonated and gave him the relatability that we've talked about.
Yeah.
His parents moved during the Depression from Minnesota to the Bay Area in San Francisco. He ends up taking a scholarship to the University of Oregon and then doesn't like it, and then transfers around.
Yeah.
And gets hurt again. And so his football career never really got to where it was supposed to be, because back then when you got hurt, you didn't come back really.
Nope.
And then boom, right? He gets into coaching.
Yeah.
And kind of works his way up. And Al Davis takes him from San Diego State,
which is wild, as
the defensive coordinator, and drops him with the Oakland Raiders as the linebackers coach, and the rest is history. because Oakland Raiders coach eventually resigns after year one because he's tired of Al Davis, and Al Davis names John Madden the coach. Unbelievable. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Superior Foundation for all your foundation repairs. If Dave Bartoo is up, and it's early out there, he'll jump on with us in the next segment. SEC Insider Hit with Bartoo coming up next. The Out of Bounds podcast is brought to you by the delicious Philly cheesesteak sandwich and cheeseburgers at Roosevelt's at Live Oaks Golf Club.
Hey guys, listen up.
This is the SEC Insider Hit, powered by Miss Kelly Furniture, Mississippi's number one sleep store.
Oh, gosh. There's still a debate on whether Charles Cross should have played last night. It makes my head hurt. I mean, Dollar Bill's leg snapped last night on a play. I mean, no. Charles Cross didn't know anybody to play last night. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, your SEC Insider Hit, driven by your next Ram truck, Jeep Grand Cherokee, or Jeep Wrangler at Mack Hike in Flowood. Mack Hike, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram. Mack Hike in Flowood, mackhikeflowood.com. Our guests join us on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. We welcome in the wild man himself, Dave Bartoo, College Football Matrix. Bartoo, good morning. How are you?
Too. That's what I need this morning, a couple of Two-Hearted Ales right there.
So
Holy moly. No, I'm
Mississippi State football fans after last night.
Oh, what the hell was that?
34-7.
Oh, well, it's your fault.
I know.
Because I gave you Texas Tech in points before the game, and you turned it down because I know you thought it was going to be like, that'd be a bad omen if I do it. Actually, the football gods reverse engineered that one on you. Now I'm setting the tone. It's still dark here. It's snowing. I'm up. I got 2 dogs, 2 cats, a fireplace, and a coffee pot that's brewing, and it's lightly snowing right now. That's what's going on here at the Bartoo house.
Well, it's been a rough morning for Hail State football fans. I think they could have handled losing 34-24 or 34-27 and a competitive football game. But when that thing went off the rails last night and they decided to lose by 4 touchdowns, it's been an inch. Our text line has been whoa today. So anyway,
really, it's a bloody bowl game.
I
mean,
doesn't everybody? But still,
people feel that.
All right, let me quote Jay Billis. All right. I'm going to quote Jay Billis for you. You can agree or disagree.
Here we go.
Jay Billis played for Mike Krzyzewski. All right. And he wrote a book on toughness and Mike Krzyzewski. And he said, Mike Krzyzewski's quote was, "Everything we do is important." He said, whether we're washing cars for a church in Durham, North Carolina, or whether we're, going to the children's hospital, or whether we're playing a crappy team or North Carolina, everything we do is important. So I think I get it, the whole bowl thing, but when you lace them up and you got a scoreboard, people are again, maybe not to win, but to play better than that.
And I'm not disagreeing from the standpoint of the score or even the expectations, how these teams played in November. I mean, it's not like Mississippi State rolled over in November. They had a really good November on both sides of the football. Texas Tech had a really bad November on both sides of the football. I don't know who wasn't starting for Mississippi State, if anybody.
They had players out. They had players out because of COVID protocols.
Right. And you got a bunch of Texas Tech kids that are, God knows how many of them are fighting for starting jobs next year as the new incoming staff is watching them. Not to make excuses, but, with your Jay Billis quote, though, is like me, Jay Billis is pretty antiquated. You know, I mean, he's old enough, like me, to say, I remember back in my day, things evolve,
right?
Things change. We didn't have NIL in the days of Jay Billis. Okay, we didn't have a massive transfer portal. We didn't have the amount of information and disinformation out there to sway kids from wanting to play or opting out early for the NFL. Think about all the things that have changed that affect the psychology of the everyday college football and basketball player. And to try to equate it to something that he did in the 80s, you know, I think that is a very big reach because things change, you know, and so it's just a different mindset, a different era of approaching these things. And it all goes back to the same thing, Bo, the same thing. Don't frickin' bet on bowl games.
Don't. I agree. And then you throw in COVID, and you really don't want to bet on bowl games because you don't know who's playing.
I mean, isn't that what we're talking about here? People are just, you know, I mean, you got to be. Well, now you're in a different part of the world. Okay, you're in I get it. I have an emotional disconnect between the importance of a Mississippi or Mississippi State bowl game. From my point of view, my chair is it's a different color sky, man. I get it, but you know it's but in all seriousness, with what Jay's talking about, I think that it's a huge asterisk because there is so much that is different emotionally for these kids today than it was even 10 years ago.
No question.
And he's talking 30, 40 years ago. Come on. It's just, that is it's wishful thinking, Jay. I appreciate it because I'm old too, but I think it's wishful thinking to try to compare the two.
All right. Let's move on to serious stuff like bowl games.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk Ole Miss and Baylor before I get to Michigan and Georgia. All right. So here's the matchup Saturday night. We've got Ole Miss and Baylor and Lane Kiffin and Dave Aranda. Ole Miss has the better quarterback. They're both really good play callers. Ole Miss recruits better than Baylor. It's on a neutral field in New Orleans. Who do you like, or what do the numbers tell us in this game, Bartoo?
Right off the top, if everybody shows up like they did in November, this is a defensive football game. The Ole Miss defensive scoring efficiency was better this year than the offense. Now, we know Matt Corral carried the entire load, not just throwing the ball, running the ball, everything. I mean, you want to talk about a workhorse. I mean, Lane ran him literally into the dirt. But when I look at these two teams, I think defense on both sides of the football, you know, which kind of makes Matt Corral the difference maker, you know, which Matt Corral is going to show up. NFL first-round draft pick, or a guy that is tired of leading the team this year. But I think this goes back to the motivation, right? You know, it's like how motivating is this football game for Ole Miss? How many big games did Ole Miss play already this year in front of 100,000-plus people?
A lot.
Right? A lot. I mean, the Egg Bowl's bigger than this. Way, way, way bigger. They played Bama. They played A&M. They played LSU. I mean, this is when you're in the SEC West, you average probably 100,000 fans a game, whether you're at home or on the road. So all these people, it's not nauseating. It's just tiring of this incessant blah 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 of the SEC isn't showing up for the bowls. Well, when you have these kind of games in the regular season, how do you get up necessarily for these big bowls as well? So, but by the numbers, I go defense. I think I'm going to go opposite of probably what everybody's thinking, and I think it's going to be if everybody shows up, by the numbers, I think it is going to be a defensive football game. That the difference maker is the best player on the field, which is Matt Corral.
Yeah. All right. So maybe Ole Miss in a close one. All right, let's go Michigan.
God knows.
Yeah, who knows? Good Lord. Like you said, don't bet on bowl games and who's actually going to be dressed out Saturday night and who's not. All right, Friday, we've got Michigan and Georgia in Miami. And by the way, Bartoo, this could matter. It's supposed to be like 80-something degrees and humid, and they've been in Ann Arbor about the last 8 weeks as the weather has changed. I don't know. Plus, Georgia has more talent. But anyway, hell of a year for Michigan, hell of a year for Georgia. 80-plus degrees and humid in Miami. What do the numbers tell us on Michigan, Georgia?
Well, I think you make an interesting point in the weather, because when we've done work for Big Ten head coaches, when we start talking designing an offense, you need to design an offense to be successful in bad weather in November. You know, if you decide you're going to design it to be a playoff team, it's got to be more speed. It's got to be more passing game. But in the Big Ten, that doesn't always work. And so guess what happened when we had Ohio State in bad weather, prepared for a playoff run as a fast team that passed? They got in bad weather and got beat by a running team. So they basically bet on their talent overcoming the bad weather. They bet wrong. So in this case, I think you got the opposite. You have Michigan built for the Big Ten, built for ground and pound, going into good weather where speed is a ever-increasing factor, and they're going up against a team that, well, defensively, I think you've seen them enough to say this team is going to stop anybody's run. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to throw to win. Michigan doesn't – I mean, if Michigan makes the national title game, they will be only the second team to make the national title game without being a top 10 recruiter and without having a first-round NFL quarterback. Only the second team. First team that did it was Oregon with Darren Thomas. Mm-hmm. That is the only one. Every team that has not been a top 10 recruiter, Oregon, Marcus Mariota, Clemson, right? Deshaun Watson, Virginia Tech, Michael Vick. That's the entire list of non-top 10 recruiters that have made the national title game. So, number one, you're betting against Michigan right there. Number two, they don't have an NFL quarterback. So making the championship game is incredible. If they win it, oh my gosh, you want to talk about a ton of streaks broken. One of them I've always talked about, last 21 years, the entire century. The team that wins the national title was top 25 in my previous year scoring efficiency rankings. Previous year. So you got to be good to be great. Michigan was 93rd last year.
Oh, wow.
93rd. And he fired his defensive coordinator. What he did to get them here is it's amazing to me. I don't think it's replicable. I don't think they're here to stay like a Clemson. They don't recruit at that high of a level. And I think they just kind of caught lightning in a bottle this year. But the fact that they're here is truly amazing. But that being said, I am still betting on the team, the only team that was top 3 in offense and defensive scoring efficiency this year that is in the playoffs, and that's Georgia.
Okay. So what did Georgia's numbers were the best going into the SEC championship game, and let's say we get a Bama-Georgia rematch, Bartoo. Mm-hmm. How do you see it? I see it two ways. I can either stick with my numbers that have been right for 21 straight years and go Georgia, or we can walk next to the devil or be in his path and bet against Saban. So you kind of choose what you're going to do here. And, of course, Saban is in the position to break a college football trend. Their offense and defensive scoring efficiency was nothing like they've been the last decade. It wasn't top 3 either spot, but of course they're in position to break that record because, or that string of numbers, because that's what he does. He just pisses me off all the time. But when it comes right down to it, if I'm looking at the numbers and going with them, I got to stick with Georgia. Okay.
I mean, it would be hypocritical for me to change now simply because it's Nick Saban. Now, that might be logical, but I would rather be wrong and go down with the numbers that I've been preaching than waffle like so many other people you hear nationally and say, well, I kind of like Alabama, but I think Georgia will win, but 53% Georgia. Shut up. Just pick one, right?
Right.
So I'm going to shut up and just pick Georgia. That's what it should be. And if they don't win, what a catastrophe and waste of an incredible season. Kirby can't choke this away. And if he does, oh my gosh, you almost wonder, can he ever break through?
Kirby can't choke this away.
He can't, dude. This is number one offensive and defensive scoring efficiency in college football this year. That team has never lost a national championship game.
Wow. So
every team.
Go ahead.
Yeah, every team that has finished the regular season in the last 20 years, number one in my offensive and number one in my defensive scoring efficiency, has won the national title. Every single one. If Georgia doesn't win it, they will be the first to fail at an incredible regular season.
Man, that'll be devastating for Kirby Smart and Georgia if they go rematch and lose again with the number one offensive and defensive scoring efficiency teams in the country. Dave Bartoo on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. Blake, do you have a question for?
I do have a question. Dave, I don't know if you have those teams in front of you that did what you're talking about, what Georgia might not be able to do, but I'd love to know who their quarterbacks were. I know you don't technically look at it that way, but man, what Georgia's done this year with their quarterback, I just think it's such an anomaly in the modern era of college football to have a QB that bad and be as efficient as they were on offense. But my real question is this. You're saying it's a catastrophe for Georgia to lose. On the flip side, for Michigan, can Harbaugh become better at Michigan, or is this the ceiling for them? Because they've only beaten Ohio State once in like 14 years. And so I put the question out either yesterday or last week that a Michigan loss, even though they're under-talented to Georgia, a Michigan loss is a bad collapse for Harbaugh because you don't ever get this opportunity because you don't ever beat Ohio State.
I wouldn't call it a bad collapse just because of the talent profile. Teams like his never get there. It's amazing that he's got him there, man. I mean, it really is. This is, SEC-wise, Georgia out-recruits them. LSU out-recruits them. A&M out-recruits them. Auburn out-recruits them. Alabama out-recruits them. Florida out-recruits them. Okay? I mean, Michigan is probably closer talent-wise to Ole Miss than A&M.
Wow.
I don't. I think what he has done this year, especially when you compare it to how bad they were last year, he fired his defensive coordinator. He made all sorts of coaching changes. Now this might be peak Harbaugh because they beat Ohio State, but it took kind of a perfect storm to do it, and quite literally a perfect storm. They were doing it in the snow. Does Michigan do that against Ohio State if it's sunny and 75 at the Horseshoe? Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, because Ohio State was one of the top three hottest offenses in college football for the last month coming into that football game, and it's snowing sideways for a team that was prepared to pass.
I like where you're going. So what you're telling us and the listeners is what Michigan and Jim Harbaugh did is incredible, and we should celebrate it because of where they recruit and their ability to just make the college football playoff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It shouldn't be criticized for him being here. Look, I've said on this program how many times Michigan is a massively overperceived program. Okay? Bo Schembechler didn't, in today's modern language, Bo Schembechler didn't win bleep, right? I mean, he won a bunch of freaking football games, but never won anything. There's no national title for Bo Schembechler. Dude, I think we expect too much out of Michigan simply because they have the most wins of all time. Well, when you rack up 600 wins while, horse-drawn carriages are still pulling people through the mud. It really doesn't, equate. So,
Right.
Yeah, I think we need to be celebrating what Jim Harbaugh did, not going, you were an absolute number one elite recruiter like Georgia and you blew it. Doing what he did or what he has done is an absolute exception, not something that we normally see.
All right, we've got a couple of minutes. Dave Bartoo on the Bell's Two-Hearted Ale guest line. He's drinking coffee and Bailey's, joining us this morning. All right, let's switch gears. I'm going to throw you a curveball. Not sure if you can or want to go there, but you've been doing a lot. I mean, your picks have been great this year. You've been doing a lot of that. You're thinking about continuing on. Is there any trend or number metrics in the NFL that's jumping out at you as we march into the playoffs, Bartoo? Anything that you've been looking at throughout the year that you go, wow, that hasn't happened in a while, or all of a sudden this is starting to happen? Anything there as far as NFL?
No, as far as the NFL goes, so there's two things. There's one thing that jumps out at me that has been extraordinarily strong in this last month, and that is the line moves. Unprecedented. Normally in the NFL, when you get an opening line of, let's say, Saints plus 3.5, you can pretty much be assured that by Sunday kick, it's probably going to be Saints 3, 4, 4.5, 2.5, 2. It's within plus minus 2 points of where it opens on the line. Totals and spreads. There is, in the last 10 years, lines moving 4 points in either direction is rare. It happens 2, 3, 4 times a week right now. And this was, and I know a lot of listeners probably be like, well, it's all these COVID protocols. This was happening way before this. Now that's having a even bigger impact on it. But I have never seen so much off the wall line movement in the NFL in the last month than we've seen in the last 10 years. Okay, so that's one thing that really jumps out. The other thing that is kind of a standard for me is, what have teams been doing the last 4 weeks? Okay, the NFL to me works on a 4-week rotation. It's exactly that. What have you done for me lately? That's why a team like Arizona Cardinals, dude, they are toast, absolutely toast. They have been playing like crap, and teams don't turn it on. They really don't turn it on. They're playing good going into the playoffs, or they're playing bad going into the playoffs. Last year, there was one team that was top 7 in offensive and defensive scoring efficiency. Same calculation I use for college football. There was one team that was top 7 in offense. The same team was top 7 in defense. It was the best combined in both categories going into the playoffs. One guess.
Tampa Bay, baby.
That's it. That is exactly it. So if you're loving the NFL, if you're looking forward to maybe betting on the playoffs and seeing which teams are going where, take a look at their last 4 weeks and how good they've been playing, because that is NFL football to me.
We're getting you here in April or May. It's done. Be good, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Take it easy, buddy. Thank you.
Dave Bartoo, College Football Matrix, and his Patreon account's awesome. Been picking games all year. Interesting, Blake, on that Tampa Bay Buccaneers nugget.
No.
And Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, dude. Watch out.
That ship is sailed.
I wouldn't
right?
want to be a Cardinals fan right now.
Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Oh, man. Powered by Farm Bureau Insurance. Bundle your auto and home and save with your local Farm Bureau insurance agent in any of the 82 counties in the state of Mississippi. Also, don't forget to hit Apple Podcasts and search the Out of Bounds Show. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to have a special guest in studio.